What do you think of when you hear the phrase, the perfect horror game? Maybe you think of the Resident Evil series, where the stressful atmosphere and sturdy enemies keep you on your toes. Maybe you think of Silent Hill, a series that never really jump scares you, but messes with your mind and challenges you to engage with difficult subjects. For such a definitive sounding statement, it's very subjective. For me, it's about how the game made you feel. I feel a lot of modern horror games have lost this fear factor, as most classic series went in a more action-heavy route. Looking at you, Resident Evil 4. Having said that, there's one game that caught me entirely by surprise. One game, released by Protocol Games, made me feel a type of fear I haven't felt since I was playing Resident Evil 2 on my PS1 as a child over 20 years ago. I was skeptical of the premise, but I'm so glad I gave it a try. And if you like horror games like I do, then I sincerely hope you'll give it a shot as well. Hey there, I'm Areku, your local Demon Fox VTuber. And I'm here to tell you about what I feel is the perfect horror game. A little indie title made for horror fans by horror fans. This is Song of Horror. On the surface, Song of Horror doesn't appear to be as special as it is. You play as Daniel, a middle-aged man in the late 90s. He arrives home from his dead-end job at a publishing firm, mulling over his recent divorce and contemplating the next X-Files episode. God, y'all remember that show. When he gets a call from his boss that one of the writers has gone missing and he should go check up on him. Daniel goes along with it, complaining the whole time, but quickly finds something amiss at the writer's house. After some exploration, he finds a strange door that doesn't line up with the architecture of the house, and hears a very weird melody.
How can there be a door there? I'd hardly taken a step forward when I heard the door close behind me. When I turned around, the door wasn't there anymore, and all that was left of it was a strange shadow on the wall. I searched. I despaired. And I screamed until my throat began to burn. The candles started to run out, as did the batteries in my torch. From within the most suffocating darkness, the hours went by, until turning into days, and I began to fall in and out of a restless sleep.
Now with Daniel's disappearance, the first chapter is underway, where you have a choice of 4 unique playable characters. Each comes with their own personalities, stats, and skills. There's Daniel's boss and Daniel's ex-wife, who decide to go look for him after he's been missing for multiple days. Then the third protagonist is an old man who worked as a butler for the residents of the house, returning from holiday and stumbling on the horrors within. And there's also a young maintenance worker who stumbles on the house trying to fix a power outage in the area, having no idea what she's getting into. When you arrive at the house as your chosen character, things will be very different, and you'll quickly realize you aren't alone. You don't know what is in the house with you, but you know it's nothing good. Right from the top, I have to say this game's atmosphere is immaculate, with incredibly clever scares that you'll slowly start to experience as you explore the house and solve its many puzzles. And then eventually, it happens.
Is anyone there?
It's difficult to put into words what I felt after this moment, and I probably can't properly convey it through a video. But this first attack changes everything, and makes you realize you are not safe, and whatever this Lovecraftian entity is, it's stalking you, and can be behind any door in this house. The only way to know for sure is to listen at each door for sound cues. This may not sound like much, but it truly makes you feel tense and worried anytime you come to a new door you have to open. It's kind of an evolution of Resident Evil's door animations, giving the player anxiety about entering any new location. From this point on is when Song of Horror really shines, and why it quickly became my favorite. Between the perfect claustrophobic atmosphere and how you never directly see the things stalking you, it feels truly scary. I have a really high tolerance for horror media, being someone that grew up with it, and even I felt so tense playing this game. But a horror game isn't very scary without stakes, something to actually be afraid of. And you may wonder what Song of Horror does to evoke such dread. Well, eventually, you'll get too curious about a noise, or you'll make a mistake. It may take some players longer than others, but it will catch you eventually. At that point, you'll be met with the game's most unique and most controversial mechanic. Permadeath in games is a contentious topic, and easily something that can turn off someone from playing a particular game. We all know it was one of the biggest barriers of entry in the Fire Emblem series for the longest time, right? However, in Song of Horror, it is the reason the game is so effective at making you feel tense and scared. It's a constant worried feeling that you'll lose the character if you mess up. And there's even some mechanics that can actually reward you to ease the frustration. Upon dying, you are returned to the character select screen, the character you were just playing as completely absent. It's like something snatched them away, never to return, and nobody has noticed. It's a bit eerie, honestly. The only thing you can do is pick someone else and try again. When you return with your next character, you'll find all the items and files you had at the spot you died, and you can continue from where you left off. Now, I know what most of you are thinking, but I want a perfect run. I want to save everyone. And you're obviously not alone with that. The developers even added an easy mode with a retry option due to such feedback. But I think using this option ruins the point a bit, and you'll regret it in the long run. You see, a lot of things in the story change depending on several factors. Characters dying will obviously impact the narrative, but even which character you finish a chapter with will change how things unfold. Depending on who dies and who you finish a chapter with, the cast of playable characters can be different later on. It's a web of changing events that encourages replays to see what happens. In addition, there's an interesting mechanic where ghost versions of dead characters will show up, called revenants. When they do, you must decipher if it's really their ghost or a dangerous trap. Deduce correctly based on your knowledge of that character's personality, and you're rewarded with great game-changing items. By removing permadeath, you're removing unique game mechanics, to say nothing of the loss of tension with a retry button, which is very important to the experience and how tense the game can get. Along with this, Song of Horror is a game based on puzzles and exploration. After you clear the game once, you'll tend to know all the solutions and make fewer mistakes. I implore you, don't ruin your first playthrough by turning off the permadeath, unless you fall down to only one character left in a chapter. Chapters are very long, so no one will blame you for turning on easy mode just so you don't have to restart the whole thing. But that's really the only situation I would consider using it. If you are brave enough to follow this caveat, you'll be rewarded with the most tense, scary, and strangely beautiful horror game I've ever played, where no two people's playthroughs are exactly the same. Now, I don't want to spoil too much past the initial chapter's premise, because the story is very interesting to discover for yourself, but I will say there is not a shortage of content in Song of Horror. It is long by horror game standards, with 5 chapters, each taking about 2 hours to finish on a first playthrough. There are lots of variables, as I mentioned previously, depending on who you use and who survives, as well as what scares the game throws at you. Song of Horror uses an adaptive AI for its antagonist creature, that presumably learns from your playstyle and attacks in different ways, lowering your character's sanity until eventually going in for an attempted kill. Think of it as a juiced up sanity meter from Eternal Darkness, except low sanity can actually kill you if you're not careful. It's really effective and keeps you feeling worried the entire time. Certain characters have different ways to combat the loss of sanity or to stay on their toes. My favorite is Sophie, Daniel's ex-wife. She has calming candles she can leave around the level. These increase sanity when she's near them. Alina, the maintenance worker from Chapter 1, also has a radio that plays static to let you know when you're about to be attacked. An obvious Silent Hill reference if there ever was one. Speaking of, there's a ton of references to other horror games in this, such as Chapter 1 taking place on the day the Raccoon City incident started from Resident Evil, and even later references to games like Obscure and Amnesia. Things like this make you really feel the love put into this game and how much the devs love the genre. I also just adore that every character has different things to say about the environment in every level. From on-screen text to different commentary, an obvious callback to how most Resident Evil players back in the day would rub themselves up against everything to see the text description. It's due to things like this that even when you find all the puzzle solutions and figure out how to stump the entity, most will probably not mind doing a second playthrough with different characters to find all the secrets. There's even different events and scares that can happen, some so rare that you can play the game multiple times and still see new things. And speaking of puzzles, I will say some of them are real doozies, even making Silent Hill 3's hard riddle difficulty blush. No shame if puzzles aren't your strong suit and you need to pull up a guide here and there. God knows I did. Beyond that, there really and truly are not that many negatives that come to mind with Song of Horror. Reportedly, there are a couple minor bugs and some people have reported performance issues on PC, but I never really encountered anything like this. Some might find the game punishing, but remember, it's okay to lose a character. If anything, it opens you up to a new experience and makes the story unique to you, as long as you are willing to get up and try again. If what I've said about Song of Horror sounds interesting to you or up your alley, it's available on Steam, PlayStation, and Xbox, and you should definitely give it a shot. If I've convinced you, but you still want some guidance or want help with the game's many puzzles, I'll include some guides and tips in the video description, so check that out. The most important tip being to always trust the bolt cutters. Hey there, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and leave a comment or catch me when I'm streaming on Twitch if you have any questions. And if I convinced you to give the game a try, be sure to come back and tell me about your experience when you're done. I really hope y'all enjoyed this. This video is the biggest undertaking I've done in a while. But Song of Horror very much caught me by surprise, and I want more people to experience this amazing gem of a horror game. If you're still on the fence and want to see more, here's a video of my first time playing it. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.